Good evening, South Central and world. Today, I wanted to give an overview of my mental health journey, and I'm going to intercept that with the local resources that were available to me. While I was in elementary and middle school, and then through high school, and then through moving into adulthood and being able to gain my own insurance, but still feel but still feeling a little bit nervous with seeking, mental health um, help, basically, because of the stigma in regards to mental health. And I know there's a lot of history behind, people of color not really wanting to seek mental health, but that's a fact based thing. And I just want to focus on my own personal experience. And yeah, so let's just start. Yeah, so, when growing up, I felt that, looking back at it, I had a lot of anxiety. And the most things I had anxiety about was like thinking that, something bad was going to happen. Like, if something happened to my parents, if something happened to my brother and sister. Um, and, and one of the other issues that I dealt with was being bullied. And around that time of me being bullied through elementary and middle school, I really didn't have the language to think about what was going on what was going on with me mentally. And I am a product of the Los Angeles Unified School District, and there were instances to where my middle school, which is Bret Hart Middle School, was well aware that I was being bullied. However, I wasn't really offered any mental health services. And with looking back, I think the only time a student had a mental health evaluation was either when they had special education or if they were in the IEP program, which is the individual education plan for people that may have learning challenges or learning disabilities. So with looking back, that was the only time to where I knew that I think, I knew a few people that were on IEP, and they did have like a therapist and a counselor, that walked them through their challenges, which I'm not going to say that it was great and grand. I don't know how the program was. But I really wish that I did have a lot more options in regards to mental health. Even though now I think that the pandemic has really turned everything on its head with that. But let me just stay in the past. So I am a product of a child. I am a product of government-sponsored health insurance. I did have United Healthcare, aka LA Healthcare Plan. However many names it changed so many times for county health insurance within Los Angeles County. I had it, and the facility that I went to was the Watts Health Care Foundation. And um, from what I remember, I don't think any mental health services were ever even mentioned. Granted, I do think it was covered, but I can't go back 20 years ago to see if it was covered. But it wasn't really offered to me, especially as coming into puberty is one of the most challenging things that a child can go through. And I didn't really have that language as far as, what's going on with me mentally. I mean, I was bullied for the most part for most of elementary and most of middle school. And, granted, like the only person that probably knew I was being bullied was my mom and of course the school administrators. But outside of that, there weren't any like wraparound services as far as like how to deal with your mental health. Growing up, I just went on a yearly basis to get my physical, as well as getting my immunizations. That is the only time I intercepted with the doctor. Also going to the dentist, and I really wish I did have mental health services. I am happy to hear that LAUSD is launching a program for K through 12 students to provide mental health services, and I'll be providing that in a link in case you have a child that goes to LAUSD, or if you know of a child that goes to goes to an LAUSD school, you'll be able to route them to those resources. And I'm not sponsored, of course. I'm a small channel now. I'm hoping to grow, but I'll provide that. So of course, with moving on from like elementary through middle school and then after being bullied, um, I would say the challenges I was dealing with high school the most was, gonna be, the fact that I knew that I was gay. Like I just knew I was. But I didn't have the language. When I took my health class, which was ninth grade, and I think most of us that were born in the '90s, I was born in 1990, right at the beginning of the decade. Health class was just pretty generic, and there wasn't really any talk about mental health. From what I remember, there was also life skills class as well. But with both life skills and health class, I don't really recall any mentioning of mental health. Um, and I definitely don't recall any mentioning of the LGBTQIA community. And that's not to say that the school that I went to was anti LGBTQ, but there weren't any resources like for me that I recall. And getting mental health support, there was virtually none. And I would say I was definitely dealing with at that time, um, from high school, through the end of high school, I was dealing with a lot of stressors and, nothing, I mean, I would say nothing major because it's in the eye of the beholder, but the most things I was dealing with is the fact that I was gay and I didn't know how to express it. And there was a point to where there was a lot of self-hatred going on, which is not healthy looking back at it, but I didn't have that language for me. And I wish that, I went to Taft High School, which is a school out in the valley, so that was a better school, quote unquote, than my home high school, which was Locke High School, which Locke is doing good from what I hear as far as like being Green Dot School. It's probably elevated by this time, but when joined into high school in 2004, that wasn't the case. So I was bussed out to Taft High School, and I didn't have any resources available to me, from a mental health perspective. And looking back, I wish there was more resources available to me because I think it would have definitely would have like made things a lot more easier for me. Because once again, all that was covered in like health class and life skills class is, of course, sex education, but pretty generic, pretty hetero, sexual, education, because that's all they really covered, and knowing that you can get condoms from the nurse's office, at a certain age range. That's all that they really covered. Of course, STIs they covered as well, um, and female body parts, male body parts, but it was a pretty generic, health class and life skills class. And then after getting out of high school, and through my early 20s, the thing that I struggled with the most was a lot of anger issues. I had a lot of pent up anger, from being bullied from elementary and middle school and a little bit of high school. And I think it was really just pent up, anger, and it it was really unhealthy. I really didn't have the skills to work out of that anger. And around that time, I didn't have insurance for about a year. When I turned like 18, I didn't have insurance probably for about a year. Um, I finally got insurance, when I started working full time at the job I'm currently at now. And even after, getting insurance, I wasn't really aware of the, mental health services that were available to me. And, that was a real struggle for me. I would say from the ages of 18 to 23, I was just purely angry all the time. Like there was so much pent up anger, from me being bullied, from me, still being in the closet because I didn't come out until I was 23. So, there was all of that. So and also dealing with like work life balance. And then also I was in school as well. And I remember, during I believe I was 21 and that was in March of 2011. I was about to say 2021. I was like, wait a minute now. But in March of 2011, this is a few years of like going to school full time and working full time, and then also balancing family needs because I am like the primary caregiver for my family. And I was the primary caregiver for my family, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later because I really had to set boundaries with that because it's okay to be helpful, but not to the point to where you're just existing just for the sake of helping people, and you can't look back to your day to see what you accomplished for yourself. So I would say when I was 21, I had a complete nervous breakdown, um, panic attacks, anxiety attacks. It lasted for probably about 3 to 6 months. I was completely unstable, and on the verge of losing my mind. And I eventually like worked my way through it because I would talk to my mom. But once again, like even during the time when I had like fully covered employer covered health insurance, like I really didn't seek any mental health. I did think about, um, I wouldn't say I thought about committing myself, but I did think about going to the emergency room and just, because I was just losing it. But I was able to work my way out of it, and that was when I was 21. So, after working my way out of it, when I turned 23, I came out to my mom, and that's really it because I really didn't need to explain to anybody else. And I just started living my best life because, luckily I'm able to do that, and I realize some people are not able to do that. Um, and I stand with them because it is pretty challenging to come out depending on your family situation. So after I came out, um, I think things got a little bit better for me. But of course, Um, I still wasn't able to set up boundaries as far as like with my family and me helping everybody file their taxes, applying for school stuff. And then I'm also working a lot, swing shifts, whether it's, and I worked in retail. So that was pretty stressful. And mind you, I would say after my nervous breakdown when I was 21, I did take like a year or two off of school, but then I got back to school shortly after that. And I went to the Los Angeles City colleges. And once again, like, I wish that mental health was there were more mental health resources available, and maybe there were mental health resources available, but I wasn't aware of them, because mental health is important. So I recall around the time after coming out, I you know things were there was of course there was a great weight lifted off my shoulders because I could finally be my true self. But what was still not there for me was learning how to set boundaries, learning how to work my way through anxiety, and then also learning how to work my way through depression. That wasn't available to me. Um, I mean, it was available to me, but I would say, I wasn't aware of the resources. So when I finally decided to get therapy, I was pretty nervous, and it was through Kaiser. I have Kaiser health insurance. It was through Kaiser in Hollywood, and Kaiser's all around us. But that was my main facility, and it was pretty like eye opening to get therapy, to have someone there to work through your problems. There were a lot of issues that I really had to let go, whether that be, um, not having a father figure when I was growing up, how chaotic my life was when, I was, growing up with my older siblings, um, other challenges as well, just working through that. And then also worried about like anti LGBTQ sentiment within my neighborhood because I do live in South LA, and it's not to say that because I live in South LA I think everybody's homophobic, but within my community, like there's still some times to where I don't feel comfortable expressing the fact that I'm gay. But I work my way through that to where like I'm accepting myself for me, but I'm just aware of my surroundings because I am aware that people are heavily homophobic, in general, not just South LA, but in general. But with South LA, it's you just sometimes you just know some of your community. I'm not saying it's everybody in South LA, but it is really challenging to go through that. So talked about that through therapy as well. And the other things that I talk about through therapy was setting boundaries with my family because, and before I get on to that, I just wanted to say that it took me a while to find a good therapist. I was at first using the employee assistance program at my job because Kaiser was not able to provide me steady appointments with my therapist. I would meet with my therapist every 6 weeks, which by that time I am literally drained again. So I think finally, after about dealing with that, for about a year or two, I was finally able to secure a really good therapist. And I meet with her on a weekly basis still. And that was probably at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was March of 2020 when I first got, you know, when I first met my current therapist, and I would say that was a really challenging time because with the pandemic, it was pretty challenging for me as far as like from a work life balance, and it was just pretty challenging. I mean, it was pretty eye opening. You like I saw. I mean, for example, I was working from home and I was isolated, so it was good to talk through that piece. I was working, in addition to working from home at the start of the pandemic. My mom is disabled, so her disability got worse. So managing that piece because I am the primary caregiver with my mom, and I really don't have any help from my siblings. Unfortunately, not trying to call them out. I just don't have any emotional support. So it was good for me to talk through those things in therapy and start establishing boundaries not only with my mom but with my immediate family as well. And what I ended up doing was just letting them know that if you can't take the time to invest and help me out with our mom, and then also not respecting me, then I'm not going to give you the time of day when it comes to you having questions about jobs or filing your taxes or doing financial aid or anything. And it wasn't to be spiteful in any type of way. It was because I couldn't just, me looking back prior to therapy, I was just existing. I wasn't living. And there's a difference between existing and living. By existing, I was just a shell, just walking around, just doing everything that anybody wanted me to do. I wasn't focusing and doing any self care, and that wasn't healthy for me. Now I would say that I'm in a better place. And 1 minute, mom, I'm gonna finish my video. And so I'm in a better place. Sorry, I was telling my mom I'm finishing the video. This is candid camera. So just letting her know. So, I'm in a better place now. And of course, there's still some challenges, especially with being a primary caregiver. And I'm still working through those challenges, working through those strategies. And then also with therapy, you're able to talk through challenges with their, romantic relationships as well. So, I just really wanted to go through my journey. And if you have any questions about therapy, please feel free to drop um, your comments below. And I don't mind sharing this. I do suffer from anxiety and depression, and I do use like medications such as Lexapro. So there's a lot of stigma when it comes to mental health within some communities. So I would say, just do what's best for you, and don't let anybody tell you like, oh, you're just being crazy. Oh, just let it go. Oh, just be tough, because mental health is really important. And and one way to start self-care is working your way up, working your way to get, meet a therapist. And I know that our mental health system, and this is just me talking not only through LA County but the greater US in general, our mental health care support is horrible. I know that. And it is really hard to find a therapist that meets your needs. But just know that you shouldn't be ashamed for having any mental health issues. This is a crazy world. And yeah, so just please feel free to, drop your comments below. Let me know your experience as much as you want to share if you feel comfortable. And just ask me more questions about my mental health journey. I'm happy to go into, high level overview detail. I don't want to get nitty gritty. But whatever the question is, I'll try to respond to it appropriately. And, please, I appreciate if you like, share, and subscribe. like and share share this video, and also subscribe to my channel. It's going to be really appreciated. Thank you.